CEO of General Motors says tariffs will cost the company up to $5 billion this year. Those estimates were shared in a letter to shareholders today.
It didn't begin with a press conference. It began with silence. On the morning of May 29, 2025, thousands of workers arrived at General Motors plants across the country, expecting a normal day on the line. Instead, they were met with a quiet, unsettling message. The line wouldn't start today, or tomorrow, or maybe ever again. There was no strike, no natural disaster, just a calm, clinical announcement from GM headquarters, one that landed like a punch to the gut. Multiple production lines across multiple states were shutting down indefinitely. The reason? A perfect storm. Demand had collapsed. Costs were rising. Supply chains were fractured. And politics? Well, chaos doesn't even begin to cover it. Now the shockwaves are spreading, from Detroit to Mexico, from Capitol Hill to the heart of Wall Street. And standing in the eye of the storm? A former president, reborn as a trade warrior, defending his policies with a response no one saw coming. Before we go deeper into what's happening and why, go ahead and tap that like button. It helps us reach more people, and it lets us know this story matters to you. It started with tariffs. Over the past few months, the Trump administration had steadily turned up the pressure, raising duties on almost every part GM relies on to build its vehicles. Steel, aluminum, semiconductors, wiring harnesses, brake systems, you name it, the price was going up. On average, imported parts were now 25% more expensive. And for some components, especially those coming from China, costs had nearly doubled compared to the year before. At first, GM tried to take the blow in stride. CEO Mary Barra reassured customers that prices at the dealership wouldn't rise. Behind the scenes, the company scrambled, rewriting supply contracts, shifting production lines, slashing marketing budgets. They even rolled out plans to start making more parts in the US. But it wasn't enough. By May 1st, GM was forced to go public with the numbers. In a revised financial outlook, the company warned investors that tariffs alone would add between $4 and $5 billion in unexpected costs this year.
This warning from the CEO of the nation's largest automaker, General Motors, about the impact of the tariffs on the car industry. Mary Barra told shareholders the tariffs on imported cars and auto parts will cost GM between $4 to $5 billion this year alone.
1 week later, GM quietly halted production at its electric van plant in Ontario, putting 500 workers out of a job.
More bad news for Canada's auto industry. The GM plant in Ingersoll, which is near London, Ontario, employs around 1,200 people, and nearly half of those are being laid off indefinitely.
2 days later, GM hit the brakes again, this time idling production of the Hummer EV and the Silverado electric pickup at its Detroit Factory Zero plant. Another 200 jobs vanished. And then came today, a full stop in U.S. production. The reason? GM simply couldn't build vehicles fast enough or cheaply enough to make it work. Parts were delayed, costs were all over the place, and consumers, already stretched thin, were starting to back away. Higher prices and growing economic uncertainty had started to eat away at demand. The impact is massive. Thousands of workers are now sidelined, and the shockwaves go far beyond the factory floor, reaching into part suppliers, shipping companies, logistics hubs, dealership networks, and small towns that were already on edge from previous layoffs. For the auto industry, this isn't just another bump in the road, it's a full-on shockwave. Because GM isn't just another automaker, it's a symbol of American manufacturing. It's the company the federal government once rescued, the company that promised to go all electric by 2035. And now, it's the company that, at least for the moment, has been forced to retreat, caught in a policy storm it can no longer navigate. Tariffs were just the beginning. They were followed by a rollback of electric vehicle subsidies. No more $7,500 tax credits. No more federal incentives to help drivers go electric. Meanwhile, battery costs stayed stubbornly high. Competition from China ramped up fast, and GM found itself trying to sell $65,000 electric trucks in a market that simply couldn't support them. Inventory piled up, profit margins shrank, and one by one, factories went dark. Before we dive deeper into what this means for the future of American manufacturing, hit that subscribe button to support the channel and stay informed. The reaction from workers was immediate. In Michigan, some broke down in tears. In Tennessee, small groups huddled together, asking union reps if this was the start of another Lordstown-style abandonment. In Indiana, workers were reportedly told, "Take your tools and wait for the call." Unions, still nursing wounds from the bruising 2023 strike, responded with fury. The United Auto Workers issued a sharp statement calling the shutdown Unjustified and devastating. In Canada, union leaders accused GM of playing political games with people's livelihoods, and then came the response everyone had been waiting for. Donald Trump took the stage at a campaign-style rally in Pennsylvania. Reporters pressed him, "What do you think of GM shutting down U.S. production?" His answer was calm, almost unnervingly so. "I do not like what they did," he said. "We've done everything to support these companies, and still they shut down, but that's on them. They could have built more here. They chose not to. They made their choices. We're making ours." There was no rage, no threats. He didn't repeat his 2018 pledge to cut off GM's subsidies. Instead, he hinted, almost cryptically, that his administration might be preparing new incentives for automakers willing to invest properly. That was it. No apology, no pivot, no policy change. The message was unmistakable. The administration stands by its tariffs. And if companies can't adapt, that's their problem. Inside GM, the mood was one of disappointment. Sources said executives had hoped for more, for some kind of relief. Maybe another exemption, a temporary rebate, even a softening of parts tariffs. Instead, they got a shrug. Wall Street took notice. GM stock tumbled 5% in the opening hour. Ford followed. Stellantis dropped 3%. Analysts quickly revised their forecasts. One put it bluntly, "This is the beginning of the auto retrenchment era."
This, one person said, is what a trade war turning into an industrial collapse actually looks like. Across the country, the initial shock is starting to give way to something heavier: fear. In Texas, a shipping contractor who works with GM's Arlington plant says he's already been told to brace for cutbacks. In Ohio, a parts supplier got word this morning that 3 standing orders were canceled. In Illinois, a dealership says customers are backing away from electric vehicles entirely, afraid they won't be able to get them serviced if things keep going like this. And this might just be the beginning. Industry insiders are saying other automakers are already reevaluating their production plans. Ford is reportedly holding emergency meetings. Toyota has warned that if tariffs extend to Japanese components next month, as rumors suggest, they may have to pull back too. So what happens now with GM? Some still hold out hope. They say this is temporary, that production will pick back up in June, that the supply chain issues will get sorted out, that once the trade truce expires in July, the tariffs will ease. But not everyone's convinced. They're looking beyond GM, at the broader manufacturing sector, and they're seeing red flags everywhere. Factory output has dropped for 3 straight months. Freight volumes are shrinking, consumer demand is cooling off, and economists are dialing back their GDP projections across the board. This isn't just a GM story anymore, it's a national one. Because when the country's largest automaker shuts down production, it sends a message, not just to workers, but to investors and consumers too. It doesn't say, "We've got this." It says something's broken. And when the people in charge respond with little more than a shrug, that's a message too. Adapt or disappear. But here's the thing, not everyone can just adapt. The people on the line, the ones who build the cars, drive the trucks, paint the panels, test the machines, they're not policy experts. They're not sitting in boardrooms. They've got mortgages, kids, aging parents, health insurance plans that depend on a paycheck. And now they're stuck. Waiting, asking the same questions again and again. When does this end? Is there a plan? Is anyone thinking this through? Or is this just chaos dressed up as patriotism? The ripple effects are already reaching deep into small-town America. In Michigan, a diner that sits across the street from a shuttered GM plant says breakfast traffic is down by nearly half. In Indiana, a tool and die shop that crafts molds for GM parts says it may have to lay off half its workers if production doesn't restart soon. And in Kentucky, a logistics firm just pulled the plug on its next round of driver hires. It's happening quietly, steadily, and it's spreading. Meanwhile, the political blame game rolls on. Trump says GM is at fault. GM says it's responding to government policy. The unions say it's the workers getting crushed in the middle. And consumers? They're seeing fewer cars on lots, higher sticker prices, and longer wait times. But this isn't just an economic event. It's a psychological one. It's a jolt. A reminder that even the biggest companies aren't immune. That jobs that once felt rock solid can disappear with a single policy shift. In an era where tweets carry the weight of legislation, a factory floor can go silent, not because of a global crisis or material shortage, but because of a press release out of Washington. So stay alert, stay skeptical, because this story isn't over. Right now, in some darkened factory, the machines sit still. The line is quiet. And there's a worker standing there, staring at a motionless conveyor belt, wondering if it will ever hum to life again.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon for more update. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.